Good morning, everyone. This is the Sharing Wheel podcast. I have my good friend here, Erik, who's getting his coffee ready. Erik is the owner of beantrust Coffee Bar. Good morning, Erik.
Good morning, Sean.
Cheers.
Cheers. So good to see you.
Good to see you.
And to be here in this wonderful spot with
Isn't it
Brianna.
awesome?
Yeah.
And it's nice that we have the curtains open.
Feels more comfortable with the curtains open.
Yeah.
See a little bit of life happening on
Yeah.
Cabot Street.
Absolutely. Yeah. And today you brought some coffee with you, and where's the origin of this coffee?
This coffee is from the country of Ethiopia.
Nice.
I'm not exactly sure where in Ethiopia it's from.
So the birthplace of coffee, according to, I don't know if mythology or whether it's been proven, but goats were eating the coffee and that was observed and they became, I don't know, hyper, and then they said, oh, now, I think maybe the coffee bean was maybe just originally just chewed, as a stimulant, but not the brewing part hadn't evolved yet.
Yeah, it's hard to know. They say those stories happen like 800s or so, but I think a lot of it is that it's actually a cherry, so growing on bushes, so bushes, and so I'm sure the goats were eating the cherries, and as people ate cherries too, and would eat the cherries as they're walking along, and they still do today, to this very day, eat the cherries. I've eaten cherries like in Guatemala, coffee cherries, and it's not a lot of mucilage and fruit on them, and the pit is actually where the coffee comes from. So they call it cascara, casing. Okay. And that's the fruit around the pit. Okay. And oftentimes locals will make drinks out of it. So So I'm sure, like many other fruits, long time ago, they probably made drinks out of them. Sure. And probably just ate those cherries as they were walking along, and they felt a little bit of a zip, probably because of the caffeine in them. But
maybe similar to like chocolate.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, and chocolate supposedly came from the Mayan area, from Guatemala, that area. Yeah. So
that was sipped, I think.
Yeah. In often ways, and I wonder where it translated from the cacao in the in their fruit to actually being brewed similarly, and roasted like coffee. And before that fermented, so it can affect the taste in chocolate as well as coffee. So the chocolate seems in its original form like much less bitter. I mean, less sweet, right? It's more bitter. Like we're drinking coffee right now with no sugar in it.
Cream.
It's a black coffee.
You can really,
And this is, there's less water actually in Ethiopia too. It's more intense. Maybe it's like wine where the fruit grows, but it grows in a way that's a little more looking for the water. So the roots go down. It's a little more intense flavors. The pit of the cherry is smaller in Ethiopian coffees, and oftentimes exhibits a blueberry taste. Let me just see. I definitely get some fruit taste. It's very acidic. You can see how it goes over your tongue. It's a nice thing when you don't add milk or sugar to it. You can taste.
You can, for sure.
And let it aerate over the tongue. So that's how you do a tasting.
Like
that.
Rather than quaffing the coffee, like gulping, right? You get to you sip. You appreciate the different subtleties of it. And according from my research, that the word coffee originated, it was an Arabic word, and not going to pronounce it right, I doubt, but it's like Kwa.
Yeah. It's a region of Ethiopia, right?
Well, there's a region called, it could be, then there's a region called Kaffa. That's Ethiopia. Yeah. But the Kwa the meaning is a stimulant or wine, which what you had mentioned. And then as it kind of moved through different cultures, it went through Yemen and Turkey. Turkish called it kahve, Kahve, and then the Dutch called it coffee, which is closer to what we Koffie, and the Italians cafe. So it's interesting, this sort of I'm fascinated the origin of a word, and then how it evolves, and the wording evolved as it moved from Africa to through Turkey into Europe, and then ultimately to the United States and other places.
That's interesting, because my understanding of distribution or how coffee got to Europe was from the Dutch traders, so in the 1600s.
Yeah.
But prior to that, definitely coffee was being consumed in some of the other areas. So I'm not quite sure of the timing, but Constantinople was an early coffee shop. So really? I think coffee is being brewed as we know it today in a similar form. They probably would just roast the coffee in an open fire and grind it with a mortar and pestle. And then probably grab a clay pot off the wall and invite all their neighbors in.
It becomes a social
and put event. Put in the cup and put hot water in your cup. So so it's very interesting.
Most likely a community was being created as a result of that. And fast forward several hundred years, we have BeanTrust coffee bar, where something similar happens, where coffee is made and community is created. And could you talk a little bit of that and your how you use BeanTrust as a platform for community engagement?
Sure. Yeah, BeanTrust was started in 2015, so many years after 800 AD, when the goats were discovering the cherries supposedly and jumping around, and then the 1200s, 1300s, 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, early coffee shops, 1700s, Enlightenment, 1800s, 1900s, manufacturing of espresso machines.
The
Bodum, the first French press was, I think, patented in 1920s, and Italian. But then it was mass produced first in a Martin clarinet factory in France, late 50s, and Bodum took it to worldwide market in a larger fashion. So there's different ways of brewing, and so the espresso machines were coming alive, and I picture 1920s in Paris and what was happening in the coffee culture.
But
I feel like BeanTrust, even though is coming on to 10 years, and actual coffee bar 5 years here in Beverly. So I was doing it out of my home, going into the workplace, practicing old world hospitality by bringing in coffee and goodies and conversation. So that spirit or principle of coffee, goodies, and conversation was really a part of the coffee bar down the street to this day. I feel like that's what my hope is to create a space that fosters genuine connection.
I've certainly seen it happen as someone who's gone beantrust, observed and participated in conversation and people coming in and how you and your employees are so welcoming and that it and you also quite bravely started it during the pandemic, which was not an easy thing to do considering it's a smaller space too, you know, and but so needed in that in Beverly and in the Cove neighborhood. People really appreciated that you were there, you know, creating community where there was none. You know what I mean? Like the idea of community sort of dissolved as a result of the pandemic, for the most part, because people weren't gathering. Hats off for
thank you.
Sticking with it. And most businesses closed during the pandemic. beantrust, you know, blossomed, you know. So that's
and I think it's a lot to the mutual want for the genuine connection. Myself and I think the community and our world is in desperate want of how do we further each other, and having places where coffee and goodies and comfortable conversation can be had, where people can get to know who people are rather than what they do. It allows one another to grow and fosters curiosity. And it is a bit of resilience where you approach a new direction, because the coffee bar was a new direction for beantrust, and opening a coffee bar where beantrust had never had a coffee bar before, so that was new.
Right.
And to do it during the pandemic was challenging, and to also open it up with my daughter of Bonnie Breads.
That's right.
It was 400 square feet with 2 businesses in it.
Right. Yeah.
And it was quite busy.
Ovens. And
ovens.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
I kind of liken a little bit of my story to like a river. Like, where did it all start? And my life started really like in Washington State, where I was born, and went to school and went to music, studied music in school, and then after graduating, not wanting to really teach, traveling around the United States, and then coming here to Massachusetts a year later, and working in a distribution company, helping it to grow to be quite large. And
Boston Bean?
Yeah. And it was first Ryder Coffee, and then it turned into Boston Bean.
Okay.
They purchased Boston Bean, and I was one of 7 employees, and I was in many different roles, and brought Pete's Coffee to market, cold brew to market, bean to cup brewers to market, Keurig to market. So I was a part of a bit of a growth.
Oh, yeah, real culture change.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
there was really no quality coffee in the workplace at that time, so I helped develop a line called Revolutionary Coffee, where I did all the packaging, all of the promotional material, but even mostly I was able to get micro roasters and blended the coffee and did it, and it became a huge success. It gave me a lot of confidence, as well as many of the other projects, to really like understand how to bring a product to market effectively. And then in 2015, I was wanting to do something more impactful, and that's when I started beantrust. And beantrust was really born out of this want for cultivating community and for doing business in a way that's more mutual with the customer, finding out how can we create a healthy culture and an environment where employees want to come into work, and practicing this idea of fika, like in Sweden, where people gather for goodies and coffee.
Right,
and have conversations. So I was trying to foster civil discourse type work, and how people can talk about all things in the workplace. And so that really gave me courage. At Impact Hub Boston, Jeff Mamlett, the founder, gave me permission and trusted and believed in what I was doing. And every Friday for 4 years, I had open conversations about topics as diverse as gender issues, politics, sustainability, everything under the sun we talked about. And it was an ongoing conversation from Friday to Friday. So
interesting. That's
and
so it wasn't like a one and done type thing. It was like a continuation.
Yeah, and we posted it through the building at 50 Milk Street, and it had wings, and it went to the universities around town. So
nice.
And people wanted and really were desiring to have these kind of conversations. Maybe not in as large of a format, but definitely it had impact, and it gave me a sense of why I'm here.
Right.
And it just it gave me a sense of confidence. So
yeah, wonderful.
So when opening up the BeanTrust Coffee Bar, it definitely was a part of my why. Why am I opening this coffee bar? Not just to serve coffee, espresso, and quality coffee, but to build trust and to build opportunities for people to practice authenticity and candor.
Right.
And to really like think about creative approaches.
Yeah. And I guess that one of the differences would be from what you did in Boston and providing the service that you did for the businesses and universities. Now at BeanTrust, you there's like a randomness to who comes in. So you have to be very, what's the word, deft or agile conversationally, and also be present as well, because you don't day to day, hour to hour, you are fielding. You're very much like a shortstop on the baseball team, right? You're kind of fielding all sorts of different types of things, and while you're doing this, the outer world is becoming more divided, in a sense. There's more division. So it's I find it fascinating to able to kind of create community, and not the idea of like navigating issues in a way where someone doesn't storm off or pit or another customer and the other customer don't, whatever, or something like that. So anyways, there's so many, it's such a skill set to do that day in, day out, with all sorts of different types of folks, So that's something I appreciate about you and BeanTrust. And you're also, the people who work there are also very good at engaging. And that's such a big part, I believe, of a coffee shop or any business. And I think you talk about the old world hospitality, but that engagement of a person, if you go in and you make a purchase and someone's just sort of, checking their phone and, kind of half there, half not, it diminishes the experience as a customer. So yeah, it's really fascinating what you do and how you have done it in so many different forums, whether it's in Boston and different events, or and now at a coffee shop as well. So that's something that could be. I'm just wondering, like, it's such an interesting skill set that it could be taught, And I don't know how, if you could go to school for that, or you would actually have to be right there in doing it. But yeah.
I got a text this morning from somebody that is leaving CIC, and she mentioned to me how much she appreciated the conversations in doing, we called it brouhaha. It's a monthly meetup at one of their locations, and it's coffee and goodies and conversation, and she was helping me facilitate it, and she was just so thankful for all the conversations that she and I had, that we helped facilitate together. Right, great. And another example is a a city councilor came in to the coffee bar, a parent, and somebody else involved in the union, and we were having a tough time during that time, and I was able to at least have open conversations with people. So I feel like being a place where we can have diverse views and being able to hear one another from different points of view is so important.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I feel like it's best done one-on-one, like us here right now, even though we are putting on the record button and we are digitally recording our conversation so others can hear. I do think it's important to practice in-person communication so that we get the body language, we get our read, we can be agile, like you're saying earlier, to be able to hear and to actually be curious about further questions, like how are you as a parent through all of this time when your kids were home, and are you okay with all this? And then the person coming in that asked to put the sign up in the window, coming in with thank you note at the same time, and how do you pay attention to that person? And then somebody from the city councilor that comes in at the same time, how do you, kind of read the room. And at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is that there was a conversation had. It might not be a giant movement one way or another or persuading anybody, but it's allowing people to be heard, to be able to ask hard questions of like, tell me more. It isn't that big of a question, but it's like, I'm curious, how do you feel on this? And being open for somebody coming in the door that might be of a different persuasion. And so if we can have those kind of conversations, then I think it's kind of, again, like going with the flow, and it's allowing maybe a diverse viewpoints at the same time. And I think at this point, within the last couple of weeks, I just feel like more and more called to be in a place where I can create opportunities for these conversations to be had.
Yeah, it's because these types of forums of seem to be eroding, and that's why beantrust is important, or BevCam is important, public libraries is important.
Definitely.
Keep these things, keep communication going, and Beverly, Beverly is a good place too, but you feel the collective kind of like angst in a way, so it's great to have what you're doing, and like BevCam moving downtown, is fantastic. And
another example I just wanted to say was sometimes saying no to a few things is good, so that you can say yes to other things.
Sure. Yeah, you get it right.
This past week, I went to a salon, and we had a wonderful discussion. Some people were very vulnerable. I was vulnerable. It's kind of one of those places, what you say stays there.
I gotcha. Yeah.
But yet, out of that, I felt compelled to say no to the next day of 2 commitments I had in Boston, so that I could stay home with my wife and have dinner and just relax on Wednesday. And I just felt a surge of energy and renewal.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
That energized me.
Yeah. You want
that helped me to be more
home. Yeah.
Open and agile, and
absolutely.
And I'm feeling like you were saying, more and more called to Beverly as a place for me to go out. I call it home now, whereas I might have a couple of years ago, before having the coffee bar, spent a lot of time in Cambridge, Somerville, Boston. But now it just seems so fulfilling to call the Cove my home.
Yes. Yeah. It's nice that you get a lot of foot traffic there. So people out for a walk, they can pop in, chat. They need to get a loaf of bread or.
So I live there. And then also the coffee bar is there, and also Lynch Park is there.
That's right, right. Someone might be on their way to the beach, or someone going up to Endicott, and I know you have a strong relationship with Endicott. Actually, you were asked to for a graduation.
It was
speech?
an honorary.
Yeah.
Honorary, not a degree, but a membership.
Yeah.
Into an honor society, the Mortarboard Honor Society, which is an interdisciplinary honor society, the only one on campus.
Right. Yeah.
And there was a number of people there, and they invited me to give a speech.
Yeah.
So I gave a speech on who I am, and I basically said that I'm here because of my grandmother and the conversations that I had with her when I was young.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
And I'm here because of my mother and my mother's encouragement to travel around the United States.
Right. Yeah.
And there was 3 stories that resonated with me on the United States. One was having conversations with those that were ancestors or descendants of the Underground Railroad, and that was in Ripley, Ohio. And it's just so impactful for me to be there and to hear those stories from their grandparents, how they walked across the Ohio River. And then I also...
So was the Ohio like a river, a border? Okay,
Yeah,
and that
Kentucky.
demarcated slave state versus free state?
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay, all right.
And then another story was on the discovering my roots in Minnesota, standing on the very ground my family homesteaded before moving out to Washington State.
Okay.
And then another story of that year-long trip was up in Nova Scotia, where all the doors were left open, and goodies and tea, basically, were on. And
nice.
And we had conversations, and so very impactful in my life for who I am today.
Right.
And of course, my wife Diane has been a big part of my life these last 36 years. So.
I met Diane.
Yeah.
She was at beantrust for a little bit there. She makes a good coffee. Really good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So Endicott's been a good place for me in recognizing after 5 years of service. So that's what they, right?
Nice.
And it feels really good to be recognized.
Sure. You want that.
Genuinely.
Sure. Yeah.
And so
that's great.
that was a wonderful experience, and it's an example of my relationship and friendship with Endicott, who I would call my neighbor.
Nice. Yeah, so. They are quite close. And then recently you came out with a jazz blend coffee.
Oh, yeah. A couple of blends. I've been working with my friend Pak from Thailand. So, we'll have to do another one. But we did the jazz blend. We did the Erik's blend. We did And it's kind of fun to have a Thai coffee. And we blended it with some natural Ethiopian. We blended it with Brazilian. We blended it with, I think we blended it with another, like a neighbor over there, like Vietnam or something.
Wow.
So we've done some things. And Pak has a company called Newbury Street. And I knew him 10 years ago as a tech person. And he turned coffee. I was actually the first person to introduce him to coffee.
No kidding.
And now he's won competitions at Coffee Specialty Association. Best in his class. And
that's great. And then there's Francois.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for mentioning Francois. Again, Francois I met in Seattle 10 years ago. And he's from Southwest Rwanda.
Yes.
And I helped him come to market with his coffee. And now he has his own coffee shop called Yego, which means a deep yes in Rwandan. And
that's in Somerville?
Teal Square, Somerville. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So he's a wonderful person, him and his wife, Fatuma.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that because just the genocide in 1994 and his family and how the farms were taken away by the by the Tutsis, Hutus, the modern Hutus, and then it was a genocide against the Tutsis, and his wife doesn't even know where her family came from, and it's just, and when she was born, it's just so to see the sweetness in them, just is amazing. Just a beautiful people.
Awesome. And then have a robotic egg maker at the store?
That's right. Yeah. I have an automatic egg maker, a robotic egg maker. It cracks the eggs and fries the eggs drops in the bottom. And on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we were having egg sandwiches and
Nice.
our brioche with egg and ham or sausage. Yeah.
Ooh, sausage.
So it's been good.
Yeah. And that's sort of like a one of a kind thing. Right now,
first
right?
ever. First ever.
Yeah.
I met Connor, his wife, now girlfriend, 5 years ago, and his girlfriend was the residence hall director at Endicott, and they would be coming in all the time.
Okay.
So now Connor and his buddies went down into Mass Robotics and kind of built this automatic egg maker because they were frustrated with going into places and taking forever to get eggs made.
Right.
And or either that or the eggs weren't very quality eggs. So we got this.
That's awesome.
This very small plug-in type automatic egg maker.
So if you don't have a kitchen per se, like you can do these.
Oh, totally.
These types of things.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I did look at your reviews. There was over 200 reviews for beantrust, and the average was 5-star. You can't go higher. So that's and some really good feedback from people who visited the coffee shop. So from Ethiopia to Yemen to Turkey and Italy and Britain and then with Howard Schultz sort of reinventing coffee or bringing in the old world kind of from his experience, I believe in Europe, right? The coffee culture that
he wanted to bring over the experience of Italy and I think many people do, and I think similarly, I appreciate that. Like George Howell here in Boston too, and
now are you friendly with
quality.
George? Or?
He's an acquaintance.
Yeah.
And he was instrumental in my coffee. I used to live in Lexington, and he had this location called Coffee Connection.
Okay.
And they roasted down in Dry Dock, so I went down there and I got to know him a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a big guru in coffee industry.
Oh yeah.
So
absolutely.
if you go to Guatemala or Antigua. Or different places, they'll talk up George Howell. There's many people that have been an influence in my life. Jim Reynolds, Jerry Baldwin, 2 of the 5 people that started up Starbucks who bought Pete's. I would spend time with them when Pete's opened in 1966, but I got familiar with Pete's probably in the 90s. And it was really good. And spending on Walnut Street and Vine where they started and just hanging out with
in Oakland?
Jim Reynolds. Yeah, it's in Berkeley.
Okay.
Right in that same area. And they opened up a roastery in Emeryville, right across the street from Pixar. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
It's interesting, like how coffee influenced Pixar. I would imagine, right? Because
I would imagine. I would imagine. Pixar's one of my favorite brands. I think Toy Story, but I like cars because I drove a little bit on Route 66 and knowing the story of Pixar and how they're able to take the hand animation and make a full-length movie, and all the anthropomorphization of the cars and different things. I really enjoy that. And helping me tell a story of going on Route 66, kind of like my story of traveling around the United States.
Right. Yeah. And you helped bring Pete's to the market in this region, right?
Outside of Berkeley, very first outside of Berkeley, California. Yeah, that was mostly distributed locally, and it wasn't even in LA. They had a 10-year non-compete with Starbucks, so they just thrived. And because Jim Reynolds, Jerry Baldwin, 2 of the 5 people had brought, so they had a plan. So they were thriving in the Oakland Bay Area. But outside of that, I was the very first to be a part of that distribution. Part of that was UC Berkeley people were out this way and that had graduated and on mail order. So it was a natural fit. They opened up 5 Pete's stores, but before that, so they had a bit of a plan to find distributors. And I was a part of that. And part of that was because I was developing that revolutionary coffee and knew about coffee, and they wanted to line themselves up quality. And that was before they were bought by a large
Okay.
a large firm out of Germany. But
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
But yeah, they were very passionate about aligning themselves up with people that were similar values.
So you experienced the like the growth of a small coffee company, and then it became corporate, I would imagine, because of the growth.
Right.
And but then you sort of maybe brought it back to maybe why you were interested in coffee in the first place.
Yeah, I think so.
And through opening BeanTrust.
I think so. Yeah. And very excited about the quality and the real human connection. And I feel like oftentimes when people and companies scale, you lose track of what we're doing right now, this conversation and over a good quality cup of coffee. And I think that's, thanks for saying that.
Oh, sure.
I feel like, that's kind of rediscovering why I wanted to bring coffee in the first place.
Yeah.
I was enjoying coffee at Coffee Connection in Lexington, and this quality coffee, and it was really not very good coffee in the workplace. They were on glass pots boiling, and it was it was really not very good.
Sure.
So having a grinder at a workplace and grinding up coffee with like 1:16 ratio, 6 ounces of coffee to 100 ounces of water and in a thermal air pot. I mean, that was unheard of.
Sure. Yeah. No, I grew up in the sort of dark ages of coffee. I'm from the South Shore, so I remember Mr. Donut and Dunkin' Donuts. They were side by side.
Oh, yeah.
I think they were brothers, and they might have broke off, But everything was Dunkin's,
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, Dunkin's not bad coffee, but it's just nice that there's more choice. And
Yep. So I came here in 1983, and I don't know what was going on in the coffee world.
There was nothing. Yeah. But that's interesting. I mean, like in the terms of beer, it was the same way, right? You had your major labels, Budweiser, Miller, maybe Coors. Coors was the exotic beer, And look at now. We got people roasting in Beverly and coffee shops in Beverly, a whole culture in Beverly. This conversation's taking place. And also you have, 4 brew pubs on
amazing
downtown area. So it's really, really amazing. Well, so thank you, Erik, for sharing your story and talking about coffee. I'm just fascinated in how, civilization has evolved, and coffee has been sort of integral to that, I mean, how many ideas have been birthed through conversation at a coffee shop?
Right. Bach cantata was in a coffee cantata in a coffee shop. Mozart would be practicing in a coffee shop, Vienna, or all of these people. Freud would be practicing out his. It would be so natural to practice out what doing all the risks and
It's
Lloyd's of London, all the insurance company, born out of a coffee shop, New York Stock Exchange. Yep.
Right. Yeah. And I know in London, coffee shops were termed the penny university.
Oh, that's right.
Because you'd go and you talk to people and you'd learn.
Definitely.
And then I think that's what's happening now. And from what you're describing, what takes place at BeanTrust.
Yeah. Oftentimes we think we have to go to Harvard or some university and pay some lots of money to.
Yeah. And then like bringing it back to like BevCam, what you're viewing and the content that you're taking in. Like this is very local. It's hyper local. It's everyday life. It's not sort of prepackaged and sort of delivered to maybe kind of to. It's just a different animal. But yeah. Very, very cool, and I know this is like an endless subject matter, and maybe something we can pick up at a later time, because that's the nature of coffee. The conversation continues, even after the
After I'm
After the
almost
cup.
done. Yeah, I have a little bit left.
Yeah, me too. And
I usually go with conversation and coffee. So
yeah. So on that note, thank you very much, Erik, for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Sure, yeah. Nice chatting with you. And this has been The Sharing Wheel. Thanks very much.